everyone. Thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. Today, the Knesset is set to vote on a new bill that significantly rewrites the law on ultra-Orthodox exemption from the IDF. In the past, members of this community were not required to draft into the army on religious grounds, but this exemption was struck down by the courts last year, forcing the government to reach a new compromise. A compromise that's being put to the test in today's crucial first vote. The new bill would still allow the ultra-Orthodox to largely evade the mandatory draft into the IDF, but would require a yearly quota from this community to enlist. For example, if the bill were to become law this year, roughly 4,000 ultra-Orthodox would be legally required to enlist, a number that would slowly increase over the next several years. If the community fails to meet this quota target by less than 95%, the government would punish the community in the form of economic sanctions against religious yeshivas or Jewish seminaries. The issue of ultra-Orthodox exemption from the army is easily one of the most divisive debates in modern Israeli history. The bill itself fully embodies that fissure. Ultra-Orthodox members of Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition have already turned against their Knesset allies, saying that not a single HAREDI should be required to enlist. Longtime Netanyahu opponents, however, now find themselves aligning with the Prime Minister's coalition, namely Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party, hoping to find a compromise on this issue. Rumor is that Haredi parties will not topple the coalition as they've threatened to do in the past. But at the same time, Israeli media has already reported that talks are underway to set early elections if the first reading of this bill comes to pass. That means that all parties may be casting their votes today in anticipation of elections on the near horizon. In other legislative news, Prime Minister Netanyahu has now announced that he intends to pass the Jewish state bill into Israeli law as soon as next week. In fact, the proposal has reportedly been given priority status for its second and third readings. The first reading was passed in May. Likud MK Avi Dichter congratulated Prime Minister Netanyahu on the announcement, tweeting, "This is the flagship legislation of the Likud and a very important law for the State of Israel and the Jewish people." He added that the coalition factions are aware that the path to passing their laws depends upon the Jewish state bill passing first. Not everyone is happy about the bill, however. If passed as is, the Jewish state bill would officially recognize Israel as the national home of the Jewish people, with Jerusalem as its capital. It would also call upon legal authorities to defer to Jewish values over democratic ones in any case where the two are opposed. Finally, it would be added as a basic law, or part of Israel's constitution of sorts, meaning it would be harder to repeal. Opponents call the legislation discriminatory towards Arabs and other minority populations in the country. Regardless, Tourism Minister Yariv Levin has just been asked by Netanyahu to meet with the coalition and figure out all the remaining details so it can be passed before the summer Knesset session break. Seems that the World Cup isn't the only thing making news in the world of football right now, as Israeli police have just arrested 8 people for fraud and tax evasion, some of whom are reportedly owners of an Israeli premier soccer club. No names or real details have yet been released, but according to the police statement, the suspicion is that those involved, each in his own way, worked together to commit tax and money laundering offenses by using legitimate companies as a cover for criminal activities. Allegations against the suspects include fraud, conspiracy to commit a crime, tax evasion, and money laundering. The Lahav 433 anti-fraud unit is now continuing the investigation, searching through the suspects' homes and offices, and questioning the suspects under caution. Prime Minister Netanyahu has just appointed Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz to the Committee on Expanding the Western Wall prayer space. This comes just days after Culture Minister Miri Regev pulled out of the committee, followed shortly thereafter by Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked. Regev cited her conscience and Jewish traditions for her reasons to pull out, despite playing a very different tune in 2013. And Shaked's reasons were not yet made public. But now, the 3-person committee tasked with the creation of an egalitarian prayer pavilion at the Western Wall includes Steinitz and Religious Affairs Minister David Azulai, a member of Shas who opposes the prayer space and says Reform Jews aren't even really Jewish. Now, as if that wasn't enough of an issue, it's looking like long-delayed expansion may be delayed even longer. The committee is still 1 person short and no one wants to take the spot. In fact, after Regev dropped out, roughly 100 Likud members published a letter of support for her decision. Still, Prime Minister Netanyahu has promised that the space under the Robinson's Arch area of the Western Wall would be converted as planned. The government approved the compromise in a highly praised vote back in 2016, and when completed, the mixed-gender prayer space would be separated and invisible to the religious Orthodox area, with a ramp to the Al-Aqsa Mosque rising up between them. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.